Hi friends, it's so good to see you. In today's video, we are going to be taking some time to talk about some alt rule sets and some supplements that different jumpers will find helpful, some of which many jumpers will use and many of which a lot of jumpers will never use. But the purpose of this is to help lay the groundwork for explaining some of the terms that we might use in a video that I'm hoping will be going out on Wednesday, October 4th, which is the beginning of an alt chain, as in both a chain that follows an alternative rule set and also a second chain that we will be able to follow and watch over the course of the YouTube videos that I'm planning to make. I hope you're as excited to hear about all of that as I am excited to film all of it, and if you are enjoying all the videos that you have seen on Jumpchains so far, I hope that you would consider leaving a like and subscribing. Both of those things actually genuinely do help me. I am a small YouTuber. I am hoping to eventually make money off of YouTube, and reaching 1,000 subscribers is an important part of that. First alt rule sets and supplements that we will be taking a look at is Jumpchain Creative Mode by Cliff C999. This is a formalized rule set for anyone who wants to do a jump chain without any sort of formalized looking at numbers, such as doing builds that require allotments of choice points or anything like that. It is for someone who wants to use a jump chain as the basis for a power fantasy, which is super valid. Jump chains are single player most of the time, and even when they're multiplayer, if everyone agrees to follow the same rules, it's perfectly fine for people to play them however they want. Now, for the purpose of our main build, for the purpose of our main jumper, Luciano the Jumper, we are going to continue to follow the standard rule set as closely as we can, with the occasional minor homebrew rule or something like that. But I enjoy the challenge of coming up with a standard mode build for lots of jumps that I would normally not do that for. For those of you who are curious, I do not use creative mode. I use something that I have made up, which I call the quest system. It is similar to something that is known as an Arcane, which we will be taking a look at some point in the near future, very probably in this particular video, just so that way people can have some idea of what it is like. But I use a rule set whereby someone has the ability to start off with one origin, all of the perks and items associated with that origin, and then has the chance to earn other things over the course of their time in a jump, as opposed to doing creative mode. I think creative mode is very fun. This is not at all an argument against creative mode. It's just that I personally feel like creative mode jumpers tend to become a little too broken, a little too fast. And I know that with what I do, it is entirely possible that someone could also have that same problem, but I think that it is better that someone go on adventures and organically and narratively earn their things, which is the reason why I designed the questing system the way that I did, so that way people can still have the chance to not gain everything in a jump, and that way people can have the sorts of builds that they want to build without being incentivized to go all in every single jump like they are in creative mode. But that said, creative mode is a lot of fun. I personally think that there are a lot of jumpers who would really enjoy it. As you have noticed, I have not really talked about creative mode, the very specific rules that it uses, because I personally feel like a lot of people are going to see this and they are just going to ignore a lot of the rules and just use this as an excuse to have a lot of fun, which I think is super rad. I'm not over here telling you how to have fun. I want to simply give you the tools by which you can have more fun in any particular way that you choose. The freedom of jump chains is something that I like, but the main basic rule of jump chains, or of creative mode jump chains, is that you have as much choice points as you want. You have as many points as you need for your build. This incentivizes a lot of people to just pick everything up in any given jump, which is super fine. If that's what you want to do, by all means, feel free to go absolutely bonkers. I would love for you to have so much fun because you learned about this through me. I am not here trying to tell you to not have fun. It's just that some people are not super into this, which is fine. This template also talks about different perks that someone could get and their effects based on this rule set. I think that this is super fun to actually read through in detail. It is entirely possible that I will do a video where I talk about creative mode in super specific detail. But this is just one alternative rule set. I will now move on to talk about my rule sets, the one that I am especially fond of using in detail, so that way people have some idea of what to expect from it. Although it's worth noting that there is no formalized document for it, it just is the way that I structure things in my own mind. Hi, so as you have heard by now, I am the creator of something that is called the questing system. The questing system is a set of rules that I like to use when I am doing Jumpchain stories, so that way I don't have to focus on builds, and also so that way a jumper can naturally and narratively acquire things over the course of their journey. So the basic structure of a questing system build is that you select an origin at the beginning of your time in any given jump. If it is a only one origin jump, you just select the one. If there's like 8 or 9, then maybe you select 2 or 3, but you start off with a fairly limited, almost normal build that you then get to take with you. What happens when you select the origins is that you gain all the stuff that the origin stipulates. So you get all of the perks, you get all of the items. I also, as a general rule, tend to include undiscounted things when I am doing my personal quest system builds, but that is not at all a hard and fast rule. And over the course of a jumper's time in a jump, they have the ability to engage with the world organically in ways that would suit the other origins. And as they do that, they either gain experience towards the other origins, which could visualize for the jumper in the form of some sort of experience bar, or they could complete quests that would award them perks from an origin or items from an origin that they do not natively have. I am especially fond of this because I find the numbers game that comes with jump docs sometimes frustrating and stifling. There's so many jumps where I would love to get more than the standard stipend, but I also don't want to do creative mode because, as I mentioned before, I feel like creative mode, especially with the standard idea that you get all of the stuff that you selected when you were making your build at the start of a jump. So if you were to select, say, a Star Destroyer item, if you were to go to generic Star Wars fanfic, where I believe it's probably not an exact Star Destroyer, but there is the option to do something that is at least in that ballpark, and you selected that at the start of your jump, even if it was what you invested all of your points into, you get it fully made and fully operational at the start of a jump. I don't really like that. I much preferred the idea that items and things like that that you don't select are scattered throughout the setting and are possible for you to find. And if you find them, they can gain fiat backing. Whether it requires an investment of your personal energy, or you have to be strong enough to wield it, or you have to take it from its current owner and then it gets fiat backing, I am far more fond of that than I am of the standard rule set, which was why I created, in some capacity, the quest mode system. There are a number of people who have asked me if I would write up a formal document outlining the quest mode system's rules. I have thought about that, and I am still thinking about it. I probably will at some point, but I don't think that something like this needs to be codified in such a hard, formal fashion. I very much enjoy the idea that some jumper, especially someone who's very passionate about a setting like Fate slash Type Moon, I really like the idea that someone would go over there and they would know what sort of quests it would take for their character to unlock some sort of absolutely phenomenal power set or something, especially because there's a decent number of settings that I do know a lot about where I could feasibly create quests that are formally outlined, or I would have to find some other way of doing that, and I am not super fond of that idea. It's also worth noting that while I came up with this idea organically, this is remarkably similar to the Arcane idea, which is what we are going to be taking a look at next. Now see, we are on the Renegade starter kits. This is a supplement by a Reddit user named Prior Possible 834. and it is all about Renegade jumpers, which is themselves another type of jumpers who do not have Jumpchains, do not have benefactors, because as I've talked about in previous videos, not everyone is super fond of the idea of Jumpchains and benefactors. I myself am one of the people who generally, I'm not particularly fond of the idea of benefactors, but this is a very exceptionally well designed system in my opinion. We're going to take a look at this, and then we are actually also going to take a look at a jump that shows what this is like, but here is an opportunity for people to glance through it. Effectively, the way that this works is jumpers cannot get choice points in the traditional sense, and instead they get perks through completing objectives in a jump chain. Now, I think that this is a very fascinating system. This was actually the way that I have done some of my stories, and I've done some of my stories long before this system existed and before I knew that the system existed, but also the idea of Renegade jumpers predates my stories. So there's lots of different people who have come all the way through to the same idea in the same way. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the My Hero Academia Arcane, so that way people can see an example of what it looks like. This is one of the older ones. I don't believe that it's one of the old formatted ones, but this is not a new Arcane. So as you can see, we are in My Hero Academia. There is a character focus. The perks will be based off of the character, and there's different quests that you have to complete, different objectives that you have to fulfill that will grant you perks. So as you can see, we're now with Midoriya. At level 1, you have to prevent Midoriya from entering UA, a hero school that he goes to, and completing this task will earn you the following rewards. There is the first perk. By allowing yourself to speak your train of thought aloud, you become able to enhance your deductive and analytical abilities by an order of magnitude. And there's the second one. You become a genius at power analysis, able to determine the strengths and weaknesses of your own powers or those of anyone else with ease. I think that those are fantastic perks for completing this objective. How you complete this objective, especially if this is your very first jump and you have no perks, you have no body mod, you have no personal reality or warehouse, is entirely up to you. I definitely could see it being a challenge. As you saw when you were glancing through the actual Renegade starter supplement, there are different ways that someone could become a Renegade jumper, and it is entirely possible that someone could have even a truly intense number of perks under their belt before they become a Renegade and have to start earning their abilities this way. I also think that if someone really wanted to, they could just use a benefactor and have a normal jump that just so happens to start off with 0 choice points, and instead of getting perks through choice points, you go and you try to complete these objectives and you unlock perks over the course of your adventure. But this is just to show you all that there's a number of different ways that jumpers can gain powers and can interact with their environments. And if you do not like the standard model where you get everything at the start of your jump, there are ways around that do not infringe upon your jumper and that do not leave your jumper any weaker than they otherwise would be. See, we have now shifted and we are over on a different supplement. This one is one of the more frequently used supplements that is a solid change to the standard rule set that I have seen, or I have seen in some cases some subtle variations of this. But effectively, this is something that allows a jumper to store their excessive choice points and save them up for later jumps, which means that if you wanted to and you either took too many drawbacks but you still overcame your jump, or if you just had leftover points, you could bank them and then you would be able to use them in a later jump without having to take extra drawbacks. This is a fantastic supplement. It is not something that every jumper I know of uses, but it is frequently used enough that it merits a mention, especially for people who wish for there to be alternatives to ways to build up their starting budget but without taking drawbacks. So let's go ahead and just glance through this. We are actually going to glance through this together just so that way people can see it. But here we go. Here are the deposit limits, which means this is how many points you can put in at any one time. If, for example, you wanted to store up 1,000 points, if you had an entire starting budget to a jump that you didn't want anything from, you felt like you could handle all of it without any issues with your existing stuff, and you didn't want to take anything from it, say it's just a filler jump, say it's just for a companion or for you to have experience in a specific world, you could do all of that so long as you have the no limit option for your bank, but that would require for you to invest nearly all of the bank points that you have right now. That is over half of your budget, and there's no discounts for this particular supplement, so that way people are forced to play fair. And of course, without this, you wouldn't be able to bank your points, so it's not like you would have banked points to use to buff your starting budget here. But as you can see, there are limits. The free option is only 50 banked choice points per jump, but if you spend 600, you get the no limit option. So it's worth noting that there is actually an interest rate that someone could have. I think that this is fantastic. This means that per jump, your total banked choice points would increase so long as you invest some of your points into this option. You have the option to just not take advantage of this. That is free, but you could spend up to 600 banked points to get up to 20% interest, which would be phenomenal. That means that over the course of a few jumps, even if you just go ahead and place in 100 choice points and turn them into banked choice points, you would eventually have enough for a full extra 1,000 if you waited long enough. Now, there's also the question of the conversion rates. It is worth noting that initially it takes 10 choice points to equal 1 banked choice points, which means that you do not get a one-to-one thing unless you invest in it, so it's definitely worth investing in. You could, for example, get the 20% interest option, and then you could have the one-to-one conversion rates, but that would be your total points. That said, this is absolutely worth getting, because otherwise you'd have to invest 100 choice points in order to get 10 banked choice points, and you can't buy anything with 10 choice points, at least nothing that I've seen. I've never seen an option be that cheap. The cheapest that I have seen things is be 50, at least when you are using the standard 1,000 starting budgets, units of 100 cost of things. So a starting perk would usually cost 100 choice points as opposed to 50 or 25, although I wouldn't be surprised if there are jumps that exist where you could get something for 25 choice points. It's just that I've never seen them. That said, as you can see, this is a flatly remarkable build, and the jump maker or the supplement maker also has an idea for people who want to use this. I do think that this is a fairly balanced option. I think that this is good. We are going to go ahead and take a look at probably just one or two other supplements so that way people could see the alternative rule sets that some people have. But let's go ahead and head on over to the next one now that people have taken a look at the bank, which is an unbelievably handy supplement. I'm sure that those of you who have seen me going through some different jumps have ideas for just how incredibly handy this is for someone who wants to do an alt chain build but still wants to deal with choice points and those kinds of things. Continuing our speedy migration, and this time we are on the Jumpchain holiday special. This is a very unique type of jump. It is a collaborative effort. Collaborative efforts are always a little bit quirky, a little bit different. It's also worth noting that one of the main compilers and one of the central contributors to this is a member of our community, Arcane Flame. I hope Arcane Flame is doing well. I very much enjoy the things they have created. We are now going to go ahead and jump down to page 20, so that way you can see a special item. The Multiversal shopping catalog is an item, and it is a magical holiday shopping catalog that updates as you travel. With this item, you can purchase items and perks from jumps that you have already completed. It is worth noting that free items cannot be purchased, and items must be undiscounted. But with this, you have a way of purchasing things that you could not purchase in the past. This is incredible. It is also absolutely not standard rules. Normally, in a standard rule jump chain, once you visit a setting and you leave, you are done with the setting unless you come back. And this is also like a supplemental rule. So this is also some kind of non-native rule sets, but it is possible, and many people have discussed the idea of coming back to a setting, getting 0 choice points natively, and having to use drawbacks to get points, but being able to do that so that way people can get things that they couldn't get when they were younger jumpers. I think that that is a solid rule set for people who want to do that, but that is one of the only ways that someone could normally get things from settings they have already visited. And that is such an incredible thing to be able to do. Having something like this completely breaks the meta of a jump chain, which is fine. We are not here to play super strict rules. I understand that there's people who want to do balancing things, which is super valid, but if you just want to have fun, this is one way to do it. This is something that someone designed, that they put thought and energy into. I personally really like it. I don't think that any of my jumpers would ever buy it, but to be fair, most of my jumpers do not use standard points anyway. We have our homebrewed questing system, which is something that I prefer a lot more anyway, but this is still a super fun thing for someone to be able to see. I'm so happy that this exists, because people who want it are definitely going to be able to benefit from it, and that's super valid. I'm just here to help you have fun. I have now come over to Space Battles, which is a forum, and it also has a jump chain community of its very own. We are in Cliff C99's slush pile. This is the 7th page of it, and in it they include a number of their personal home rules, which a lot of people have used and a lot of people find to be a fun and balanced way of doing things that are outside of the normal constraints of a jump chain. One of the other ways to acquire something from another jump is the mail order system. It is a house rule that allows a jumper to spend their CP allotment from the jump they are taking to obtain something from another jump dock, provided that they pay the full undiscounted price. Mail order can also be used to backorder things from jumps that you've already completed. In that case, you may still use any discounts that you were eligible for. Mail order can be used to purchase things with an undiscounted cost and either a flat rate or the pay X to retain this post-jump price, whichever is higher. This is another solid way of obtaining things from other jumps. It is something that allows you to use your existing points, so that way you don't get things without paying some sort of cost, and it is just an altogether fairly fun thing that people can do. These are examples of the sorts of different house rules that jumpers can reasonably expect to come across. I have chosen some of the ones that a decent number of people have thought are balanced in some capacity, or at least that people find fun. I personally prefer fun over balance, and I know that's funny given that I am doing things in a standard rule set over on my other jumper, but that is a personal choice, and that's because I wanted to show people what a standard jump chain would look like and feel like in practice. And it's actually been a very fun exercise for me. I think it's a very different experience to try and think and try and summarize a jump chain like this, and also to try and think about the limits of not being able to get whatever you want without regarding points or without being able to go on an adventure for it. I think that that's very cool. I'm very excited to show you all what an alt chain looks like though, and I hope that you are as excited to take a look at an alternate rule set as I am. Have a great day, everyone.